Hey, what's popping? What's popping, everybody? This is that boy. This is that boy, Rick Titus. This is that boy, Rick Titus, with Exquisite Podcast. Exquisite Podcast. Hey, you know this guy named Deion Sanders out there in Colorado, where he says he's not hard to find? Rick Titus is not hard to find. We're going to make this podcast pop. Anytime you got a name like Titus, you got to stand up to the mic. You got to come from under the ground and you got to rise up. So I got a big cousin. Getting ready to come on the mic. I'm telling you, I'm trying to get the audience clear. This cousin that I'm bringing up, Solomon Taylor Titus, this cousin that I'm bringing up, he's going to make it drop. He's going to make it bounce. So I want y'all to take a good listen, because listen, family, some of us don't take heed in building our family foundation. That's why we got a lot of struggling in the neighborhood. That's why we got a lot of struggling, because we don't take heed in what we're trying to do. This is the deal. I want you guys to do me a favor. I want you guys in the family to do that boy, Rick Titus. Do that boy, Rick Titus, a favor. Like, share, subscribe, and comment. I'm going to say that again, because we are on the internet. The internet gets kind of shaky. So what I want you guys to do, like, share, subscribe, and comment. You guys that's watching us on YouTube, you guys that's watching Titus, Rick Titus, that boy, Rick Titus on YouTube, subscribe, hit those thumbs up, hit those doggone thumbs up, and let's go ahead and get this thing here popping. Let's go ahead and get this thing popping. The Titus Family Foundation. The Titus Family Foundation. And listen, family, I know you're worried. I know you're out there worried. I know you're out there sneaking. I know y'all out there sneaking. But listen, when you got that last name Titus, it's something special about that Titus. It's something special about it. If you're a Titus, I don't care where you at, in the U.S. or international. That's what my big cousin Solomon is going to talk about. If you got that word Titus, you got to know your family foundation. I see some people climbing in, Solomon. I see some people climbing in on the internet. They're climbing in. I'm looking in the comment section. They're climbing in. So this is what I want you guys to kind of touch and feel. I want to touch you today. That boy, Rick Titus. That word Titus is I'm telling you, it's a powerful, powerful foundation word. So listen, I'm not going to hold you guys back. I'm not going to fight you. I'm not going to dig you up out of the ground, because I got my big cousin on my side today. I ain't doing this podcast by myself today. And I had 3 podcasts early this morning, and it was a bomb. It was a beast. But this one is the best. We saved the best for last.
That's right. Huh? That's right.
The Solomon Taylor Titus, the Titus Family Foundation. Hey, listen. Family, this is what I want you to do. Get your popcorn, get your tea, get your coffee. I don't care what you want to drink, but you got to get this information. And for all of the Titus family in Rochester, I'd like for you to thank y'all for coming on. And all of the families in Washington, D.C., Detroit, Chicago, L.A., we got them all over. We got them all over. So what I'm going to do, give me a few minutes. Hey, give that boy, Rick Titus, give that boy, Rick Titus, a few minutes, because we're getting ready to get this thing popping with this exquisite podcast. Exquisite podcast. So here and now, my big cousin, I'm glad to see you, brother. I'm glad to see that you are alive. I'm glad to see you get this thing here popping. I'm going to turn the mic over to you. Big man, my big cousin, Solomon Taylor Titus. He's going to lay it down for you, family.
Good to be here with you, cuz. It's a pleasure and a blessing. You know this day was destined this day was destined to happen, and only through the good grace and goodness of God that these things come to fruition. Because the journey that I've been on, all of my family, all of you that are out there in this media world that we live in today, has been around and seen the journey of what has taken place from afar. And then certain things happen in the universe, and we continue to move forward because there's no stone unturned and there's no books that we shouldn't read. There's a message in everything that we do in this life, and especially during a time period when you learn who you are and where you come from and what you should be standing on as the mission and the purpose on your life. No one else's life, the purpose on your life. So I'm glad to be here with you, cuz, on this special night and during historical times that we have in the Titus family, led by the Titus Family Foundation and those individuals that support the foundation as foundation advisors and board members right here within our family, because a family that prays together stay together, and we sure know that we pray along with each other, for each other across this universe, so that the thickness of that realm is who we are and where we come from. You see, so that's the connection, because we are a very unique and different person, or persons, or the bloodline of persons from which we come from, because it runs deep and it runs thick. And to understand where we come from is what keeps us together now and today, from not only here in the United States, but across the Atlantic back to London and Jamaica. So we have a deep Titus bloodline, and we could be on here for hours and hours and hours uncovering the seriousness of who we are as a family and how we move forward into the future as a family. Because every one of us, no matter what it is that we do in this life, there is a unique expiration date. And the uniqueness is what we give to the life that we've been here on this earth and what we leave, because this is now on our watch. This is our watch as Titus family members and Titus descendants, not only across these states here in the United States, but again, like I said, across the Atlantic, and those Tituses that went back across the ocean during the time after the Civil War. And we still have those connections with us. So it's a pleasure, cuz. And whatever you want to ask, I got for you. Whatever they want to hear, we have it. Everything's been documented. Everything's been ready to go. And now it comes a time in our life where we actually pull together and pull that sweat equity together so we can do some more positive things for the future generations of the Titus descendants here in America.
Yeah, cuz I got a question. I'm looking in the comment section. Some people wanted to know, where's the Titus fungi? I think they're spelling it wrong, but you know what they're looking for. The African Foundation with ISHMAEL Titus and Julia Titus. Where did they come from? How was they exposed to the Titus family?
All right. Well, the exposure to the Titus family in reference to the names that you've given in reference to ISHMAEL Titus. ISHMAEL Titus was born in 1746 in Amelia, Virginia, and his parents were some of the first African slaves of the Fulani people that came to these shores in what we call the Middle Passage. So in the Middle Passage of Africans that were being shipped over here by the Dutch, the French, and the Europeans, those Titus Africans carried the name Titus coming out of West Africa, mainly Sierra Leone, Cameroon, and Gabon. And then when you talk about Miss Julia Titus, actually the first Julia Titus is the wife of a gentleman by the name of GLASCO Titus. And both of them were born in 1845. Actually, when you speak of Julia Titus, that gives us our lineage, you, my brother, and myself. we are the descendants, the direct descendants of Glasgow and Julia Titus, born in 1845. And Glasgow Titus was one of the 12 Titus brothers that was born between 1810 and 1845. You and I, my brother, come from the youngest branch. So I guess it's only fitting that the youngest branch be the branch to bring all the nations of the Titus Africans back together here in America and across the seas.
And we got another question here, Solomon. I see some people saying, well, where did Rochester, where did Maysville, South Carolina, where did Rochester, Maysville, South Carolina, Sumter, I think they got something down here where Chicago, Illinois, Los Angeles, and how did all of us came about? I mean, how did this Titus family came about, and do the Titus family do family reunion? Because a lot of people out there in our generation, in my and your generation, we lost all of the grandmothers, the aunts, and those older people used to have a code. They was on code. So how can we get on code and keep this generation, this Titus family going?
Actually, we have been on code. Unlike a lot of families that lose their way along the way, we actually had lost stars along the way. But there's a generation of us that understood that in the passing of elders, the torch has to get passed. But the torch won't get passed if we, as the siblings, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, don't pay attention to what the elders are really telling us. So if you don't pay attention, it's going to get lost. It just so happens that I was put in a position that I not only had to pay attention, I understood what was transpiring from the time of me growing around these elders. So when you take a look at the Tituses in all of those different locales, I would share with you, as I said earlier, the lineage is 1810 to 1845. We also know the earliest lineage, and I don't want it too much to go over the top of your head, but the earliest lineage dates back to the time before America became America, because our oldest known ancestor was born on these lands in 1746. Remember, I don't want it to go right over the top of your head, but you might want to take some notes and put the numbers together yourself. If we were here on these lands in 1746, and then in 1845, had not been for Glasgow Titus, we wouldn't be here. So you look at the 2 decades, 1746, now 1845, or the 2 centuries, I guess you would say, okay? In the 2 different time periods. When ISHMAEL was here, ISHMAEL was pre-Revolutionary War. And then going into the mid 1800s, now we have the Civil War. And during those 2 major battles, the first one, when the United States patriots rebelled against the King of England, that was the cause of the Revolutionary War. And our ancestors and ISHMAEL Titus and those Titus Africans were already here. And then as the 1800s came through, again, like I said, the Civil War broke out. And then here it is, the Titus lineage is still here during the time of the Civil War. And just to share with you, during all of those battles and all of those fights during that time period, the French and Revolutionary War, the battles at Kings Mountain and Guilford courthouses and all those type of places, Titus descendants have fought in every one of those battles. And just this past week, we recognized 100 Titus family members that had fought for this country. So when you talk about how we have spread out into Maysville and all those type of places, first you have to understand that the South, in a lot of areas, especially South Carolina, Georgia, North Carolina, areas up in North Carolina, all that land was claimed by King George. King George sent 7 lords over here to colonize all of that area. And during that time of colonization is where they needed slaves. So the Titus slaves ended up in that area. And then, as I stated in a lot of our writings and research, there were 12 Titus boys that was born into slavery, and those slaves were scattered all across the eastern seaboard. And then during the Great Migration is how we ended up all over the United States of America. For an example, in 1852, Edward Ned Titus was taken away from South Carolina by his slaveholder, the Simeon and Nancy Lake family. Again, this is 1852. When they took Ed out of Maysville, South Carolina, they took Ed on a wagon train and trails headed to the state of Texas. That was their final destination, from Maysville, South Carolina, or the South Carolina areas into the state of Texas. They ended up in Freestone, Texas. But along the way, they stopped and spent a few years in Arkansas, because remember, they had to travel by horse and buggy from the Carolinas to the west. And they had certain trails that they passed through. And once they got into Arkansas, they stood still for a bit. However, the family of the Lakes stood still, and those Titus slaves stood still. And once they were ready to move again, they moved again. Just so happens that during that time period, while in Arkansas, Edward Ned Titus and his wife had a child, and one of those childs, they named him Henry, King Henry. And King Henry finally ended up in Texas, in the area called Fairfield, Texas, called Fairfield County, Freestone, Texas. And that's how our West Coast Tituses ended up into the fold, where a lot of the family members that were still on the plantations in South Carolina and Georgia remained in South Carolina and Georgia. But through our Titus family research, we have reconnected most of those families, at least 6 of those 12 families that were separated. So that's where the origin of the Titus lineage starts, but it's a deeper origin than that, and we'll cover it.
Another question that I see in the comments, young lady is asking about Charlotte, North Carolina. She said that she saw a plaque on the sidewalk, and she wanted to know who was that and where did this plaque came from.
Well, that plaque, you're actually looking at that plaque because that's the plaque of ISHMAEL Titus.
Say it again, man. Say it again.
You're viewing the plaque right now. That plaque is ISHMAEL Titus, our first and oldest known ancestor, who was actually a twin. His brother's name was Primis. And ISHMAEL Titus, again, born in 1746. And then when ISHMAEL Titus was 10 years old, now just imagine where you were and what you were doing when you were 10 years old. I can speak for myself because I remember I can at 64 years old, about to be 65 years old, I can remember vividly playing marbles in the yard around 10 years old, throwing footballs over the fence at 10 years old, getting my first glance at the cute girls walking down the street at 10 years old. I can remember vividly. However, in ISHMAEL Titus's case, at 10 years old, he just so happens to be in the slaveholder's house, and the slaveholder name was Harry Bluford. Harry Bluford was an individual that supported the British militias and the patriots here on these lands because America was still in colonization. So when General Edward Braddock, a British soldier, and the British hierarchy out of England decided that they wanted to get rid of the French and the Indians that was on this land. And if you do your history and research, you'll realize that this land was occupied completely with indigenous people and Indians before the Europeans showed up. There was no Christopher Columbus discovered America. There was no Christopher Columbus discovered America. There were Indians on these lands and nations of Indians on these lands and indigenous people on these lands. So when General Edward Braddock set out with his troops to go and fight against the French and Indians, Harry Bluford gave his 10-year-old slave, ISHMAEL Titus, a task. He was to travel along with General Braddock's army in the support of transferring ammunition, food, clothing, substances, and all that type of stuff as the rear guard of his train as they were moving towards the battles in the Midwest against the French and the Indians to take those lands. It just so happens that during this time period, General Edward Braddock, a British general, went to war against those French and Indians, and those French and Indians kicked his, and the entire regiment was annihilated. But guess who survived that battle? By not directly being in contact with it, but there in support of it. None other than a 10-year-old boy named ISHMAEL Titus. So that was one of the first battles on these lands in this country before it became America. And then as ISHMAEL grew in time, he became a young man. And that by the time he's a young man in his 20s, guess what America do then? They attacked their own that brought them over here, meaning the British. They ran King George and his soldiers out of these lands and sent them back over to, and you all know, everybody liked to go over to England. And I have children in England. So ISHMAEL then fought as a young man in the Revolutionary War. Thus, that's why his plaque is sitting on the ground in the Charlotte Liberty Walk, downtown Charlotte, in front of the Harvey Gantt African American Culture Center as a Revolutionary War hero. That's our ISHMAEL Titus.
We got another question. Some people are asking, this person is from Saginaw, Michigan. Saginaw, Michigan. Wants to know, do the Titus Foundation have a book that they're written, or can we get together and try to make a movie? Because this is a fantastic story. So is there a movie in the making with the Titus Family Foundation?
There's a number of movies, documentaries, short stories, books to be written, magazines to be created. The Titus Family Foundation was established in 2016. We are actually 9 years old, and being 9 years old, we are still what you would call an infant. The reason I say we will be called an infant, because we have been building the foundation for the past 9 years, and a lot of legwork has been done. But before we release it to the world, all T's got to be crossed and all I's got to be dotted. And we are just completing our final documentations with our lawyer as a legitified and registered New York State nonprofit organization, because we are not just a family foundation, we are a community foundation. And we feel that if we educate our children will in turn, if we educate our children through the Titus Family Foundation, which we have been doing over the years, once the foundation is ready to explode and launch itself, we will then have our children educate the world.
Okay, we got another question. Want to know when the next Titus family reunion will be done outside of Charlotte, North Carolina. That was the last one that this person said they mentioned. They want to know when the next family reunion will be.
The next family reunion is getting ready to be launched from Maysville, South Carolina in July of 2026.
We got another one, Solomon. We got a lot of questions coming in here. We got a lot of questions down here in this box, man. This question is, how can we get on a podcast with Brother Titus and Brother Solomon Taylor Titus? How can we get that started? Because this Solomon, this person is saying that they've been seeing a lot of podcasts out here, but nobody's talking about their family lineages. They don't know it. They don't know. So how can we get that done? So I can answer that question for that young lady. We getting it done right now.
Yeah.
Me and God brought us together.
Yeah.
We always been cousin, but
Yeah.
I was sitting down. I said, you know what? Let me get in touch with my big cousin since I bought in to this podcast studio, this exquisite podcast studio. So I got to make this thing work. So me and Brother Solomon gonna get together. This ain't gonna be the last time we do a podcast, because check this out, family. I don't know how long I'm gonna be on this earth. Brother Solomon don't know how long he's gonna be here. You don't know how long you're gonna be there. But this is the deal. Why you got both of us on camera right now? Why you got both of us talking about the Titus Family Foundation? So now, you know, the brother told me he needed some help. So I got a source. I got some information. I got a studio. You know, I invested into exquisite podcasts. You seen the engineers coming in there trying to help me get everything set up. So if we want to get something done, we got to take your foot out and start stepping. Start saying, hey, what is it that y'all need? Not this ain't got nothing to do with about money. It's about your skill set.
That's right.
And we are, and like Solomon always was saying, that Titus, man, if your last name is Titus, if you are in the Titus family, you better not get up here talking about you weak, because there's no such thing as a weak Titus. I never seen one.
No,
and if I did see one, I'm gonna lift him up. Just like Brother Solomon is giving you all of this information. So now you need to take it, you need to share it, and you need to go ahead and let's go ahead and get this thing done. He was telling me off air, I'm gonna share this with you. He wanted a website. I said, brother, did you have a website? I said, I can build one for you. I'm gonna build one for you. So we got to use our skill set to get things popping. A lot of other groups out there, they're doing it. So what makes you think the Titus Foundation can do it too? Cannot do it. So I'm answering that question that the young lady had in the comment. Now, if you want to add something to that, Solomon, you can.
I'm just going to say that the roots are there. We cannot misunderstand the purpose, as I stated before. I found my purpose and I understood my purpose. Being a young United States Marine, from the age of 18 years old, I would have never thought that such a thing would happen in my life, you know. And we all go through life, we go through trials and tribulations and stuff like that. I mean, that's just a given. That's the world that we live in. It's how you're going to stand up after those trials and tribulations, you know, because at the end of the day, when you lay your head on your pillow at night, you lay your head on your pillow at night with your thoughts and your dreams and the things that you want to do and accomplish in this life, either that be good, bad, or indifferent. But the thing is, we have to be able to stand with each other as family. We all have been given different gifts. We all have been given different gifts. But when those gifts work in unison, and I always, and cuz I'm gonna tell you, I watch you from afar. I watch all of my family members from afar because the task was placed on me to do so. And I do so. And the thing is to keep the family together, bring the family together. The family had to be found and the family had to be understood. After being found, they had to be taught and shown who they are and where they come from, because we are unique. And every one of my family members, as far as California, Florida, Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, New York City, Jersey, all across the Eastern Seaboard, Washington, D.C. When I tell you I wish you can see what I have seen and continue to see. It will blow your mind. Some people may not even be able to comprehend what I have learned about who you are as Tituses. And each and every one of you, down to a man, woman, a child, will look deep down inside yourself and, excuse my French, say, damn, that's all me. That's how I am. In everything that you do, you want to strive to be the best for it. You're going to reach for the stars for it. You want to stand out front for it. You're going to stand on it, and you're going to stand with family. You're going to understand family. You understand where we come from and what you're supposed to be doing because the elders done showed you the way. And we turn our back on no one. If we're going to struggle, we're going to struggle. We're going to get ourselves out of that struggle, pick ourselves up, and keep it pushing. Now is the time where we have to heed the call because it's bigger than us. When you understand that your bloodline is that of kings and queens, and I don't want to take this over the top of your head again, but I'm going to say it. And hopefully one day you'll understand or go back and take a look at it and say, you know what, Solomon said that. Let me see exactly what that means. Don't just listen to what I say. Study what I say so you can have your own self-understanding of the knowledge that's been brought before you. And now you can read it for yourself. That's why I took a contingency of family members to Shelby, North Carolina, because I got tired of talking. If y'all want to hear from the horse's mouth, all right, meet me in Shelby, North Carolina, and somebody else is now going to tell you what Solomon's been telling you all of this time. So now I'm going to say, when you understand and learn that your biological bloodline, the blood that flows through your body, the blood that keeps you alive, the blood that has been shared on these lands and before these lands, when that bloodline stems back to the 15th and 16th century of the Jolliffe Empire that once ruled in Africa and only got distorted and displacement because of the wars that took place in Africa, and then the destruction of the Black continent in Africa. And I mean, they actually tore it down and then displaced those peoples across the Atlantic to what we have here called the United States of America. The Great Experiment, they call it. When you understand that that bloodline is you, you will act different. You'll think different. You'll be different because you know that the gifts that you have are even greater than you. That's what I want you to take away from that. Understand who you are and where you come from.
Yep, I appreciate that. We got like 10 more minutes, 10 more minutes, because we ain't going to keep everybody long. I'm gonna take this next question. This is going to be the last question right here. And then what I'll do is turn it over to my brother Solomon Taylor Titus, the Titus Family Foundation. And then I'll end this exquisite podcast. But let me do an ad. I gotta put an ad out there. Exquisite podcast is here. Exquisite. This is a podcast that is on. I want everybody on the mic. I want everybody on this podcast to hear me loud and clear. This is a podcast that is owned by brother Rick Titus. You heard that name? By this brother, this young brother by the name of Rick Titus. I'm a retired DOD police officer.
Yeah.
I'm retired, so I had to find something I had to do. And I wanted to show you guys, come here, Tay. I wanted to show you guys something before we leave this podcast. This is my co-owner.
What's going on, y'all?
This is my co-owner. with Exquisite Podcast. So I want to let you guys know that the game out here is real.
Yeah, it
The
is.
game out here is real. So I need you in the family to start supporting Exquisite Podcast.
Yes,
Start supporting the Titus Family Foundation. Let's get the word out. And I'm gonna leave it with this before I pass it to Brother Solomon, my big cousin. I'm gonna leave y'all with some nuggets here. Check this out. You heard of this thing called eminent domain. If you haven't heard about eminent domain, you need to go get it checked out. You need to start reading some books. That's where that Titus instinct comes in. Eminent domain is something going on serious out in the state of Georgia. In the state of Georgia, we have FBA's husband and a wife. They're getting ready to run a railroad track in the back of her house. I'm like, what kind of shenanigan is going on in the state of Georgia? I said, if you bought the house, you bought the land. She said she bought the house and the land.
Yeah.
But now we got to be careful with what we say.
Yeah.
Look up the word eminent domain.
Eminent domain.
And start seeing if we can help these people down in the state of Georgia. It might be going on in your state, but you don't know. So that's some of the gems that I wanted to give you guys. So what I'm gonna do, we ain't gonna hold you too long, but I want you to really look at that Titus Family Foundation. We are some strong individuals. We got to get on code with each other. I'm gonna say it again. You might not like it. Like my brother Solomon just said, we got to get on code. I'm doing it. Here's my co-owner right here. I'm doing it. I didn't know this brother 10 years ago. I didn't know him, but we put some things together and I said, hey, I said, let's build this Exquisite Podcast. Let's build it from scratch. So help the brother. Share this podcast and let's help the Titus family get out of that barrel, that crab barrel. All we doing is just bumping heads together in that barrel. We got to climb out and say, hey, this is the world that we are faced with. Let's go ahead and get this thing popping. I'm going to turn it over to you, brother.
All right.
Solomon, Taylor, Titus with the Titus Family Foundation. The mic is yours.
All right. Well, you know, we still got about 10 minutes or so. What we got?
Yeah, we got 10 minutes.
Okay, yeah. Just in closing, do understand that through the foundation it's been a very strong challenge, but one that we have welcomed as a family because you know we have so many family members across the United States and still yet family yet to be found across the United States. And there's a lot of things on the foundation's table to including we'll be having 100 Titus family descendants, past and present, that have served this country in every American war, be inducted into the African American Monument and African American Veterans Monument in Buffalo, New York in late 2025, 2026. So that's a process that the foundation is currently working on to include the creation of the Titus Family magazine that's been on the table for a few years now and get ready to launch that 2025, 2026, as well as the planning of the Titus Family Foundation returning to its roots in Maysville, South Carolina. And it's a history and a story, a great story that comes behind that because as you know, cuz that's where we all originated out of as far as our grandparents and great grandparents. So so a lot of things looking forward into the future, great things for the Titus Family Foundation, to including we'll be bringing 50 baby boys. Actually, I still call them baby boys, but we've been following 50 boys in the family between the age of 9 and 16 years old. We'll be bringing 50 of those boys to Rochester, New York this summer as well. and they'll be going through a Titus family rite of passage for a 5-day retreat here in Rochester, New York. So that's something we're looking forward to having and accomplishing in the year 2025. Because again, these are 50 boys that have never been in each other's presence before. They're cousins from all across the United States, and it's time for us to start sharing the lineage and the story with our boys as they grow into men. And again, it's our responsibility as the elders now to make sure we teach the next generation. So looking forward to future things with you, cuz. And this is where we stand. And this is what we're going to work for going to the future with the Titus Family Foundation.
Well said and well done. This is that boy. This is that boy, Rick Titus, with Exquisite Podcast with Solomon Taylor Titus with the Titus Family Foundation. Hey, listen, who said it couldn't be done? I'll see you guys on another video.
Peace.